If someone followed you around for a day, would they see somebody surviving? Or would they see somebody living with purpose? Because purpose isn't just about what you say, it's showing up how you decide, and what you choose, and in who you're becoming. Recovery changes habits. Faith changes identity. And identity changes everything. I am Brock, and this is Living with Purpose. Welcome to episode 2 of Living with Purpose, the moment everything changed. There are moments in life that are divided into 2 parts. The before and the after. Moments where a decision, a conversation, or even a single realization changes the direction of your life forever. For me, that moment came May 30th, 2017. And it began one of the lowest points of my life. When I finished recording episode 1, and I started reflecting on everything that's happened in my life, one thought that kept coming back to me was any number of these moments, they could have absolutely broken me. They could have taken me to a very dark place, or they could have derailed my life so much that more serious consequences would have had to have followed. But somehow they didn't. After my dad passed away, the first 6 months felt very dull, especially that first week after he died. That first week after someone dies is one of the strangest experiences a person can go through. It honestly reminds me of those moments that you wake up from a bad dream. Just imagine that you're in the woods and you see a bear. And that bear sees you, and it starts chasing towards you. You start running, your heart is racing, your fear is starting to build, and you're running just as fast as you can. And you keep turning around, that bear is gaining on you and gaining on you and gaining on you. And just before the bear jumps on you, you wake up. Your heart is pounding, you're sweating, and there's moments where you're trying to figure out if this was real. Then you realize it was just a dream. You typically take a deep breath. For me, I go walk around the house for a few minutes, calm down, and then I feel that relief because it's not actually real. Unfortunately, grief is the exact opposite of that. During these years that my dad's been gone, there are many nights that I have had a dream that we've been talking, going snowmobiling, going and doing all the things that I enjoyed doing with him. Or just having moments where we were able to talk. Now, during those moments, they felt so real. I would wake up and I would realize that it was just a dream. And then reality would set back in. It's a super bizarre feeling. And that's the kind of grief that doesn't just hurt. It changes how you see life. Everything just felt quiet. And it's not a peaceful quiet. It's a very numb quiet. For the first time in my life, I knew that there was someone watching over me, watching what I was doing. And in a strange way, that even made me more determined to stay sober during that time. But life kept moving around me. Those final years of my dad's life, our family went through a lot of changes. One of my brothers came home from his mission. He got married. And then we found out very shortly later that we were going to welcome the first of many, many nieces into our family. I'm telling you, that's one of the greatest joys of life, is being able to be an uncle. Go get those kids all hopped up on sugar and send them back and just have all of the love for a child without majority of the responsibilities for them. Also, during that time, I had a brother leave on a mission and come home. Now, my youngest brother, he spent the final years of my dad's life really taking care of him when his body was breaking down. Watching someone that you love slowly lose their ability to do some of the simplest things, it absolutely challenges you. It makes you appreciate things that we normally take for granted. While all of this is happening around us, my wife and I are also facing our own painful experiences. Up to that point, we had already gone through several heartbreaking miscarriages and pregnancy losses. Those losses will really do something to a couple. They definitely test your patience and they test your faith. They also test your relationship. Now, if anybody has gone through infertility or pregnancy losses, you know that it's not just a medical journey. It is absolutely an emotional one. Every month we would be super anxious to see if we were pregnant, even times when we were a little bit late and even more optimistic that like, oh man, this is going to happen, only to feel discouraged and disappointed when another month went by. And it feels like every time that something doesn't go the way you hoped, it feels like you're starting all over again. There were nights that my wife and I would sit and talk about what our family might look like someday. We didn't give up. In March of 27, we walked into a fertility clinic very much determined to figure things out. We wanted answers and we wanted to be able to move forward. During that same season, something else was happening inside of me. From March to May of 2017, I slipped back into my old ways. Not only was I struggling again, but I was lying about it. And if I'm being honest, lying had just become a part of addiction. Because addiction, it will destroy you internally, but lying destroys trust. And trust is the foundation to every healthy relationship. I remember very clearly it was Memorial Day 2017. That day we were out celebrating with our family, going and visiting graves, the things that you do. But I needed to take care of some work orders, and so we ran a few errands to go do those. While we were driving there, I asked my wife if she could look up an address and see where we're going and what we needed to do there. I went inside to take care of the work order. Now, while I was inside, she had my phone. She started seeing a bunch of things on my phone. And at this point, we had already had several conversations over the years about addiction. And one of the things that she made very clear was that she was not going to tolerate lying. When I got back into the car, she asked me how my addiction was going. And in typical addict fashion, I went on this long spill about how I've never been better. I'm just so fired up with the progress that I've made, and I basically just denied it. Looking back, I realized something about addiction. The addiction itself is destructive, but the lying that comes with it is sometimes even more damaging. Every time you lie to someone that you love, you chip away at trust. And sitting there in the car with my wife, I knew I had chipped away again. Then partly upset, partially hurt, partially angry, a whole flood of emotions. She asked me, then, if you're doing so good, why are these things on your phone? That moment was completely crushing. Because most importantly, I knew I let her down. Again. But the day wasn't over yet. We still had to go through the rest of it, had a few more places to run to. A couple days later, two of my brothers and their families were moving to Arizona. So we were trying to just act like everything was normal. We were pushing through something we both knew wasn't normal. But when we finally got home later that night, this conversation obviously continued. At one point, she got up, walked down the stairs, and said she was leaving. One of the most powerful things that has happened through this journey was what happened next. As she goes to grab the handle, she heard a voice that she hasn't heard in over a year clearly come to her mind and say, "Stop. Yeah, you're not leaving. You're going to stay here and you're going to work it out with him one more time." That was crazy powerful because that obviously was the voice of my dad. And she stayed almost begrudgingly, most likely. But she stayed, and I said, I gotta go. I gotta go get some space. I'm gonna go sit in the car and just try to figure some things out. So as I'm sitting in the car, obviously completely overwhelmed, I started weeping. And it wasn't just emotional weeping, it was very uncontrollable weeping. There are moments in life where the walls that you have built around you, they just collapse. All your excuses end, and all of your justification are done. All the ways you've convinced yourself that you're in control. And sitting there in that car, all of that was gone. I was faced with truth. I couldn't fix this on my own. And I was ready for a real change. While I was sitting in the car completely broken down, I felt the strongest impression. That same voice that had come to my wife came to mine and said, "Look for addiction recovery near you." Now, recovery programs have been around for a long time, all around me for years. My church has actually sponsored one for many decades. But somehow I had never realized the resources that were available to me. And this was the beginning of a completely transformational time in my life. I started searching, and I actually found that there was a recovery meeting just a couple of miles away from where I lived. They even had a group that my wife could attend on the spouse side. So I go back in and I tell her, "Hey, there's a meeting tomorrow. We're going to go to it." There wasn't a lot of fight with that. It was pretty crazy. It was just like, yep, that's what we're going to do. It's crazy to me that one decision has literally transformed my life and so many other lives. I'll be honest though, I didn't expect that that's what was going to happen. When I pictured addiction recovery, I thought it was going to be a room of creepy and smelly guys that had just spent way too much time behind a computer screen. I expected it to feel like really awkward and uncomfortable. But when I walked through those doors, what I actually felt was something completely different. For the first time in what felt like a long time, I felt peace. I felt comfort. And what I found in that room was not what I expected. Instead of those people that I described, I found some of the most Christ-like people I've ever been around. People who understand struggle. People who understand weakness, and people that understand the atonement. My struggle and my addiction had lasted far too long than I ever wanted it to. There are moments that it easily could have crushed me. But sitting in that room, I finally began to understand what I had talked about in episode 1. The second part of the atonement. The part that forgives sin. The part that gives strength and the part that heals. The part that frees you from all those chains that you feel like you've been carrying for years. For the first time in my life, I began to rely on it. May 30th, 2017 was the day everything began to change for me. Now, those first couple of months of recovery filled me with so much hope, so much excitement. The feeling that I was finally building something. When I was 8 years old, I was baptized. I don't think when I was 8, I truly was saved. My saving came 19 years later, when I finally surrendered the part of my life that I had been trying to hide for so long. As recovery continued, I found myself thinking about a lot of people that I really cared about. One person in particular stuck out to me. It was my aunt. This aunt had lived with us when I was a little kid, shortly after she came home from a mission. I don't remember a lot of that, but I still remember mornings running down and waking her up and having her come up for breakfast and just being able to be around her. I was so jacked. I truly loved her so much. Not too much later, she got married, and things in her life really started to take a turn. She was in a relationship that the same addiction was part of it. But there was no recompense, and it ended up really, really costing a huge part of her life was battling this addiction with her spouse. And it definitely started to take some devastational tolls. Several events that happened in their life was really rough to watch. And as an adult, I saw some of this going on. When I got the news in August of that year, it did not come as a complete surprise. But I was still extremely devastated. That day, I got a phone call from my mom. And I had learned that my aunt, someone, again, that I loved very deeply, had passed away. In that moment, I realized a lot of different things. I finally saw that she was reunited with her brother, my dad, that she missed, and she was also there with her parents. And she was free from a life that deeply divided her. Recovery had just began for me. But now I could see clearly what the other path looked like. And it was devastating. And what the devastation that lay ahead. They say that a fool repeats his mistakes. A wise man learns from his own. But the wisest learn from the mistakes of others. And then decide to change before it costs them. And that realization changed everything. On May 30th of 2017, that was the day that everything changed for me. Recovery finally started. And for the first time in years, I felt hope. But what I didn't realize at that time was that the years ahead would test my faith. It would still test my marriage, and it would test my strength in ways I never expected. Miscarriages, losses, depression, and moments that nearly broke us. And that's where the next chapter begins. Thank you for listening to Living with Purpose. If anything in this episode resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share so that this message can reach those who need it. Just remember, no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. And until next time, keep living with purpose.